Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Breathe Motivation. It is Monday. I hope you guys are having a great Monday so far. I know we talk about how we need to stop having the Monday blues, so I hope you guys are getting over that, right? So this is episode 102, so glad you guys could join us today. My name is Anthony Hester. I'm the host and founder of Breathe Motivation. So let's recap yesterday, and then we'll get on to today's topic. So yesterday we talked about our 7 principles of Breathe. So making sure that it's really our, how I overcame, my sense of, kind of a lack of direction or the lack of my purpose, right? I kind of understood my purpose, but I understood that, I created, not knowing, this kind of system of how I could find my purpose. So that was, an acronym of Breathe. So that's be bold, rule your world, exceed your expectations, attack your purpose, take control, harness your dreams, and embrace change. That's what I did to, help myself find my purpose, right? I kind of knew my purpose, but I had to take action. So those 7 key principles really helped me along the way to find my purpose and what I could do to do that. So let's talk about today's topic. So I want to say thank you to a listener. She actually wrote in on my chat on my website and left me a message, and I'll read that message, or kind of the statement and a message. And I actually reached out. So it's about burnout. So let me give you the definition first. It's exhaustion of physical or emotional strength or motivation, usually as a result of prolonged stress or frustration. So here is the, comments and questions. So I just started listening to your podcast and they are very helpful. Have you done any talks on burnout, specifically nurse burnout? I've been a nurse for 29 years and work in intensive care nursery. With all of the changes in healthcare, I especially see older nurses struggling to maintain our old values and beliefs about bedside nursing and taking care while trying to keep up with technology. At the same time, we seem to be picking up the mess a lot so the patient gets cared for well. Many of us are frequently called upon to deal with difficult, dangerous patients due to our experience. How do we lower our standards to prevent burnout? So I reached out and I had to, luckily I've got a couple of aunts that were nurses. And so I reached out to some of them over Facebook, and I even got a chance to talk to a couple. So I'll give you a couple of responses that I got from them. So one, depending on the field that you're in, and you said you're in an intensive care unit for nurseries, right? The intensive care nursery. So there's a couple different ways. So Aunt 1 told me, there's a lot of different opportunities for you to go into other fields. So if you're not really happy or you've been in that field for a long time, it might be a great opportunity to move on to another one. Now, it's very tough, and we've talked about, kind of change and how hard that can be sometimes. So it might not easily be done. So that might be a tough situation. But my other aunt told me this, and I'll read the text message she sent me. She's like, I don't think we can ever or should ever lower our standards. We must adapt to the changing technology and expectations by finding a way to balance the experiences in the path we have chosen with the demands of the new technology-driven world. For example, the next 30 minutes of electronic charting will allow me 1 hour of direct patient care. The more skilled we become at that part we hate, the more time it allows us to do what we love. Win-win, if you ask me. So hopefully that helps a little bit, and I'll kind of go into a little bit more about burnout. Like I said, I'm not a nurse, so that's why I reached out and talked to, several, my aunts, and then also a couple of other people. So they all kind of said along the same line. So hopefully that helps you out, and I was able to maybe answer your question for you. So I no matter what, and that's why I ask you guys, if you guys ever have a topic you guys want to talk about. I don't know why in 102 episodes I'd never talked about burnout, but man, there's a lot of things that I might not have covered, and I would have loved to cover burnout because we all experience it, right? So feel free to reach out to me on my website under the contact us, so I can even contact you individually. So it asks for your email and all that good stuff, and I can even get you in connection with people, or get those answers and send that to you directly. And even my social media, feel free to reach out to me as well. So let's talk about burnout. So there's several different signs of burnout, right? So what you're looking at, and I've gone through these personally myself, you're looking at, kind of chronic fatigue. So you're always tired and worn out, lack of concentration. So it's hard to really concentrate on your job or, just, your family and things like that. So there's a lot of things that you kind of lose track of, anxiety. So really, amplified, things going on with your body and, your heart, palpitations and, maybe you're sweating constantly or, for me, I felt like I had a tight chest sometimes. So there's a lot of that. You start to isolate yourself. So maybe you're not as interactive with your friends or your family and you kind of hide off, to be with yourself and, you don't feel like interacting with people, right? That's one of the biggest signs of burnout because you're so tired of dealing with people at work or, dealing with people in your everyday life. So that can cause that, right? And then lack of productivity, right? So lack of productivity. So, maybe you're not doing as well at work and, that can kind of lead to burnout as well, because if you're not doing well, now your boss is getting on to you or however that looks, right? So, naturally, as you get burned out, it's very hard to, really get into the idea of getting to work and working your butt off because you feel like you give. And it's so hard to, continue on that, right? Now, those are just some of the signs of burnout. I mean, there's a few more. So, if you're looking at, just physical symptoms, lack of, just kind of interest in your, in things that you enjoy doing, right? So lack of enjoyment. So things you once used to love doing, like maybe going out and playing tennis or going out with friends to go see movies. Maybe you're not doing that as much, right? So here's a couple of causes of burnout that I looked up and that, I really, for me and my personal experience as well. So some of the causes are, kind of having unclear goals, right? So you don't really have a goal in mind of what you want to accomplish. And I've gone through that, and that's, my quickest sign to burnout, because if I have unclear goals, I'm not moving, right? So my goal in life is to be able to move forward. And if I'm not moving forward, guess what? I'm going to feel really stuck. And when you start to feel stuck, you start to get these symptoms of burnout, and then you start to kind of just sit in one path, right? That's what happened to me when, I've had jobs that I've been, just unclear about, unclear of goals, or I wanted to get promoted and I wasn't getting promoted, but I felt like I was doing all the right things. So that kind of hurt, and that was a hindrance. So it created, burnout, because I was working my butt off to get somewhere where I couldn't get, right? Next, lack of recognition. A lot of people like to hear that they're doing a great job, right? So some of you guys might feel like you're doing such an excellent job that sometimes you're not recognized by, your peers if you help somebody out, or, you're not recognized by your boss, or maybe people aren't just paying attention to the quality of work you do. So that can be tough because you want to be able to be recognized for the hard work you've done, right? So you've got to be able to find a way to really kind of recognize yourself. And sometimes, that is tough because you want outside recognition, like most people, right? We want that pat on the back, but the biggest thing is you got to separate, that outside deal and really kind of find internal how you can, really tell yourself you're doing a great job, right? Because at the end of the day, you can get all this external recognition, but if you don't recognize within yourself and, really take care of yourself, that can cause a lack of recognition, right? The only person that can really recognize consistently is you. You've got to recognize yourself and all the great things you're doing. And that's something that I had a hard time doing, years ago, was I would never give myself credit for the things I've done. So now there's things that I do and I'm like, man, hey, that was a great job, right? I'll tell you something really small and it sounds crazy, but before, I lived in an apartment and now I live in a house, and I used to have to call like a plumber to, like unclog my shower and all that stuff. And guess what? This weekend I unclogged my shower and I felt like really good. I was like, man, that was really easy. All I had to do was go, buy a unclogger or whatever. I think they call it an auger, and, do that. But I was able to do that and I was like, man, great job. As small as that sounds, you've got to be able to give yourself recognition and say, man, you did something great, right? Next, another cause is monotony. So, and same thing, the insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. If you're doing things that you don't enjoy doing and you keep doing those things, guess what? It's going to lead to burnout, right? Because you're not enjoying what you're doing. So if you keep doing the same things, I promise you're probably going to wind up in burnout because you're not doing anything different. So the way to kind of combat that is to make sure that you are, maybe doing something that you enjoy outside of work. If your work can't really change or do any, you can't change that right now, change some things in your life that are going to maybe give you a little bit more enjoyment, right? So here's a couple of things that, I think would help with burnout. One, it's really just taking control, right? So take control of your life, take control of, your opportunities at work, because most of the time burnout's from work, right? So take control of situations, right? So if there's times where, you feel like you're not being as effective or, you need some help, ask for help, right? So you got to be able to, if your boss throws something at you and, you feel like you can't get it done because you're already, there's so much on your plate already, ask your boss for some help or ask them to, maybe, hold off on this assignment until you can get these other ones done, right? You've got to be able to come to a compromise with work, because when you take too much work on, guess what? Burnout, right? Next is just observation. So one, just be observant of your surroundings and be observant of your job or things that are going on in your life, right? In order for us to be successful, we've got to be able to observe what's going on. And that's one thing that I learned within me. I've got to be able to observe my thoughts. I've got to be able to, observe, my, feelings that I'm having, right? So I've got to be able to observe those things and see what I'm telling myself. Because a lot of the times, we talk about the negative talk track in your mind. If you have that about work constantly going 24/7, guess what? You're probably going to have to cut it out or, find another way to, really do something better or do something to get rid of it, right? So that comes to the next step. You've got to evaluate, right? You've got to evaluate your life, evaluate yourself, evaluate your job, right? So if you continually are going through burnout, there was a time where I was just constantly, when I was going through anxiety, I was so stressed out with work and all the pressure that I was feeling. And a lot of it was self-made pressure because I wanted to do so well in my position. But I have to, you have to evaluate, is this job really the right job for me? Right? I've done this several times. And when I figure out that, hey, I've gone through enough burnout that I know when it's time to switch jobs or, move on to a different position within the same, within the same company or however that looks, right? I have to evaluate and say, hey, is it time to move on? And if it's time to move on, guess what? I take action and I move on, right? So I started a new career or a new job today, right? It was because I had to evaluate my current situation to decide, hey, is this the right position for me? And it's not. Okay, great. It's causing me more stress than I need right now. Let me evaluate and find something better or find something that's going to challenge me, because at that current position, I wasn't being challenged, and that's what I need to do, or I need to learn something new, right? So I took on a different opportunity and I moved on. I wasn't looking to move on, but the circumstances and the situation happened to where, I was able to find something different, and I moved on because I had to evaluate, was this the best move for me? And once you decide that this is the best move of, maybe, taking down your classes, like if you're going to school, you don't take as many classes, maybe you take one less class so it eases off, right? Or same thing with your work. If you decide, hey, this isn't the best position for me, let me look within the company and see if I can move on, somewhere else, or I move outside of the company. It's totally up to you. Next, change things up, right? It comes back to the monotony. If you're not changing things up, things will always be the same. You're going to continue to go through the same thing. And as you do that, that's where you start to see more and more symptoms of this burnout, right? Because you're doing the same thing and you're not finding purpose, right? And that's a big thing. And that's why so many people struggle in life and kind of burn out, is they don't really know their purpose. They don't have passion behind what they're doing. So you've got to be able to change things up to be able to find your purpose and find ways to excite yourself and find life, right? Ask for help. Find, the the people that can help you and take some pressure off yourself, right? And last but not least, take some time off, right? Take some vacation, do something different. Take some time off. That always, tends to help sometimes, but make sure that you're just actually relaxing and doing things that you enjoy doing. That'll help ease off that burnout, right? So just make sure that you're focused there. So let me leave you with this quote. Burnout occurs when passionate, committed people become deeply disillusioned with a job or career from which they have previously derived much of their identity and meaning. It comes as things that inspire passion and enthusiasm are stripped away and tedious or unpleasant things crowd in. So don't sit there and wait for, burnout to happen. Recognize it before and find ways around it, right? Because if you do that, be able to understand you and understand what your needs are, you will find quicker success. So burnout happens to everybody. I've gone through it. I know several people that have gone through it. Just know that you can work through it and you can make it through it, right? So remember to check out our interview on Wednesday. We got Wesley Chapman coming on, so really excited. If you don't know who he is, Google his name. You'll find his great story. I've got that opportunity for us on Wednesday. So honored to have him on here. So I look forward to that. Check that out. And as always, remember to breathe motivation and exhale success. And I will see you tomorrow on Tuesday, and we'll talk about starting something new. So thank you guys, and have a great rest of your day.